Welcome to That Boxing Writers Podcast, the weekly podcast show about boxing. I'm That Boxing Writer, Jeremy Harridges, and let's start the show. Hello, fight fans. I'm That Boxing Writer, Jeremy Harridges, and welcome to another episode of That Boxing Writers Podcast. It's been a 2-week hiatus since I've had a podcast out. Last time I talked to you guys was right before I went to the Canelo versus Caleb Plant fight. I was planning on having a podcast for that weekend, but I was just swamped with work. I was covering the fights, going to different press conferences, which let me tell you, man, it was a trip. There were several out there that were quite interesting. I was at the kickoff press conference between Devin Haney and Jojo Diaz. I was also at the press conference for Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury wasn't there, but Jake Paul definitely put on a show. I also got to see the inner workings of the problem bot, which, was interesting in itself. But yeah, I needed a little bit of a break, but I'm back, re-energized, rejuvenated, and ready to talk some boxing with you guys today. I have a fantastic show for you guys lined up. You will see my conversations with middleweight Jason Quigley, who fights tonight. So just in a few hours after this comes out, you guys are going to be able to see him in action against Demetrius Andrade, which should be a pretty interesting fight. Then I also have an interview with McWilliams Arroyo. You'll catch my conversation with him, also fighting on tonight's card from the SNHU Arena in New Hampshire, different type of fight location, but will also be in action, so you can catch that one too. He's going for the full title. He's currently the interim WBC World Flyweight title, trying to get that full title. I'll talk about that before I show you my conversation with him. And then last but not least, friend to the show, Adrian Clark, had some big news that he dropped recently, so he fills us in on that. So overall, a pretty jam-packed episode. Before we get into this week's conversations, I do have some good ones coming up for you guys, so make sure that you're staying tuned to the podcast. Remember, make sure to find us either on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, and if you could, leave a rating or some sort of review. Always like to hear from you guys. Always like to hear what you guys want in the future. But also my YouTube channel, That Boxing Writer, if you guys check it out. I will have a couple interviews. I just had one with Stephen Fulton, which was awesome. I'll also have a write-up for that on fansided.com. And I should be talking to Gervonta Tank Davis today. So that one is always going to be good. He's got a big fight coming up against Isaac Cruz. So keep your eyes peeled for all of the action surrounding That Boxing Writer Network as we kind of jump into this. So before we begin with today's interviews, let's talk about this Saturday bout, which will be November 20th between Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter. I had to give my 2 cents on this, had to talk about how I see this fight playing out. Many people are pointing out the obvious here, that this is probably the toughest bout of Terence Crawford's career, maybe the toughest bout of Shawn Porter's career too. Terence Crawford is the favorite, but there's a lot of buzz for this fight. People are looking forward to it. Now that we're seeing Terence Crawford against an elite welterweight, he fought a lot of his career as a super lightweight and obviously was undisputed champion of that division. But, he hasn't been in against a real grade A opponent at welterweight. And Shawn Porter is that. He's an elite welterweight fighter. So how will Terence Crawford do? A lot of people are predicting that this is going to be a tough one. And Shawn Porter, in his defense, always makes it a tough fight. I think he will be challenged, definitely more challenged than against a guy like Edges Kavalauskas, right? Or Kell Brook or Amir Khan. Yeah, Shawn Porter is a durable guy. He likes to get in close, likes to make things ugly. When we talk about styles making fights here, I think that Terence Crawford's style is going to subvert what Shawn Porter likes to do. Shawn Porter likes to get in close, make things messy. I think Terence Crawford can maintain the distance. I think the fact that he's a southpaw who's a switch hitter is also going to give problems for Shawn Porter. With that being said, I see this as a unanimous decision victory for Terence Crawford. I don't see him stopping Shawn Porter. Shawn Porter's lost before, but he's also a 2-time world champion. He stayed in there with Errol Spence Jr. Yes, he did go down in round 11, but he still kept it close. And even going down, it was still a split decision for Errol Spence. One referee had it, or one judge, excuse me, had it 115-112 for Porter in that fight. So Porter has a way of taking guys that are at the top notch and really tarnishing their plans. He doesn't fully implement what he wants to do, but I think it's important to realize too, that when we're talking about a guy like Shawn Porter, he has wins over current champion, Yordenis Ugas, former champion, Danny Garcia. I mean, that's some big stuff. Yes, he has a loss to Keith Thurman. That's also when Thurman was in his prime. Also has a loss to Kell Brook. Also was when Kell Brook was in his prime. But, you know, I think Shawn Porter has something that makes him difficult. And here's the thing. He and Terence Crawford are both 34 years old. They're starting to hit that point where their prime is slipping away and they're heading into the twilight years of their boxing career. Yeah, can they fight for 3 or 4 more years? Sure. I think Terence Crawford has more of a chance to do that, but I still think that he's going to deteriorate a little bit. But so is Shawn Porter. I think we're going to see a little bit of a decrease there. And I think that Terence Crawford's going to look like the sharper fighter in this fight. I think he's going to have pinpoint accuracy. I think he's got the faster hands. I think he knows how to maintain distance better, but he will get hit. He will get hit. And if Shawn Porter can hit him with regularity, well, then that makes this an interesting fight. I don't think it's going to get to that point. I'll also say that I've heard rumblings surrounding the Shawn Porter camp that they weren't fully happy with this fight camp, or at least not fully happy with Shawn Porter's effort within this fight camp. Not saying that he's not training. Obviously, he looks like he's in good shape, but maybe that he's not doing all the things that he needs to do to be sharp for this fight. He's done a lot of sparring, which is great. But if all you're doing is sparring, then that's a problem. So if he hasn't been sharpening up the other tools, if his focus hasn't been 100% there and he's more focused on sparring rather than just doing all the other things you have to do, that could be a problem. So will some of the things that I'm hearing, from various people about Shawn Porter's training camp being so-so, will that materialize in this fight? Is it disinformation fed to me? I don't know, but I can tell you, I take it at face value. And I don't think we're going to see the Shawn Porter that we saw against Errol Spence. I think Crawford's going to take advantage of that. I think he's going to win a healthy unanimous decision. I see this being a wider margin on the scorecards than we're used to seeing Shawn Porter lose by. I'm feeling a 117-111 scorecard. That's what I'm thinking is going to occur on Saturday. But hey, that's why we have the fights. That's why we wait and see what occurs. This one's on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. So it's $70 if you're a ESPN Plus subscriber. If you're not, then you have to pay the extra money to get that subscription for at least a month, which I believe is $6.99. Or you can bundle it, which is what I do. I bundle it with Hulu and Disney Plus, gives me a much better discount. So I'm also a cord cutter. So that's what I'm doing with it. But that's how you're going to see this one. Also, make sure to check out my recap on fansided.com. I'll have something for you guys on that as well. I may even do a live round by round on that one. I'm a little bit undecided, but check out fansided.com/boxing and see. I'm leaning towards doing it. If I'm shelling off the $70, then so be it. So anyway, that's how I see this one playing out. Now, tonight, I never mean to cut it this close to fight time, but hey, it's a Friday night fight. So there we go. You've got a WBO middleweight title defense from Demetrius Andrade versus Jason Quigley. I recently talked to Jason Quigley, really nice guy. Things to note about him. He's got one loss. He talked about that with me, his one loss to Toriano Johnson. that, was, I believe that was back in 2019. He says he's come a long way. He's put it behind him. He talked about this being his dream and also talked about what it's like working with his trainer, former champion, Andy Lee. So make sure to check it out. My discussion with Jason Quigley.
Jason, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm great, Jeremy. Thanks for having me on.
You've got this big fight coming up. I mean, it's a world title fight. When and how were you approached for this fight?
When and how was I approached for this fight?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, my team just contacted me and says that there's a possibility of the Demetrius Andrade fight. They asked me, am I interested, even though they knew the answer. But my team contacted me and we got the ball rolling and we were ready to rock and roll.
Obviously a world title fight. I mean, that's what every fighter dreams of. How much does this mean to you to have this opportunity?
This is something that as a kid you dream of, these is probably the reasons why you start boxing and get an interest in boxing as a kid, because you've watched your idols, you've watched the people that you look up to won a world championship. And whenever you sign that professional contract, the end goal is to become a world champion and to fight for that world title. But all that kind of through your career changes. And at this stage now of my career, I believe that this isn't a dream no more. This isn't something that you long for or that you want down the line. This is something that I deserve right now. This is something that's happening right now. I've worked my ass off to get myself into this position. Boxing isn't the easiest of sports to do inside and outside the ring. So, I've earned my right to be here now, and I'm looking forward to getting in there and taking care of business.
As far as your last fight, you had a good fight against Shane Mosley Jr. Looking back at that fight, what were some of the takeaways? What things did you think about when you watched that fight over again?
I think my composure in that fight, just to mix it up a little bit as well. I didn't just stay one style throughout the whole fight. I mixed it up. At the start, was a little bit slow of starting. Just getting into the feel for it. I had been out of the ring for a long time, so it took me 2 or 3 rounds to kind of get into the swing of things. And then, I got up my toes, started boxing, started moving. And near the end, then I mixed it back up again and made sure that the judges knew that I was the enforcer. I was the lad that wanted it more than the other guy.
So you go from that fight, you get this fight, obviously. And as far as your preparation for Andrade, he's had, numerous fights, but looking at his performances in his last 3, whether it's against Williams, Keeler, Selecki, are there any weaknesses that you've kind of been seeing that he consistently makes that maybe you can capitalize on?
Yeah, look, every boxer gets in the ring, makes mistakes, and there's weaknesses there unless you land your first punch is the knockout punch and the fight's over. But look, Andrade is a great champion. He's a two-weight world champion. I think he's definitely the best middleweight out there at the minute. And of course, he has some flaws in his game and some things that I'm going to try to exploit come fight night. But most importantly, I'm making sure that I'm coming to the ring 110% prepared, making sure that my game is as spot on as I can have it, and let him worry about me more so than me worrying about him.
He's a very awkward fighter. I mean, that's what everyone kind of says when they look at him. He's awkward. He does some things that really confuse his opponents. That southpaw stance. Talk about your history against southpaws and, what's your perspective when fighting a southpaw?
I've never had any problems fighting a southpaw. As an amateur, I've had a lot of amateur fights, a lot of amateur experiences, traveled all over the world, and came up in numerous of amateur boxing tournaments. You would have 5 or 6 fights in 1 week, and you'd be coming up against different styles every day. So to me, it doesn't faze me too much. It's actually a lot easier in the professional game because I've had a full training camp. And look, this is what it's all about. You can, as the famous Mike Tyson, everybody's a plan until they get hit in the face, you know. So it's just a matter of working on the things that you're good at, trying to exploit the things that he's not so good at, and just performing on the night.
I know that a lot of fighters have been hesitant to fight Andrade because of his style. He has a way of making good fighters look bad. What does that say about you that you accepted this fight? It really seems that you're willing to take anybody on if you're willing to take Andrade on.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'm not one of these guys that's in this sport just to take part and just to, be in the bright lights every now and then and, coast through my career. I'm at a stage now in my career where I'm at the important stage of my career. I'm peaking now in my professional career. And look, Demetrius, as I said, is a great champion. I want to become the best, and to become the best, you've got to beat the best. And I believe Demetrius is the best in the middleweight division right now. So for me to get in there, to beat him, and to become world champion would put me right up there as number one in the middleweight division.
In the 1920s, and like the era of like Benny Leonard and some of those old school champions, those guys used to fight like once every 4 weeks, and if they lost, it was no big deal. They would go back and they would fight the next week and try to avenge it. You have one loss on your record against Terreno Johnson. Kind of looking back at that one loss, it shouldn't characterize your career because you have one loss on your record. How do you look back at that one defeat?
I don't look back no more, whether it's in boxing or whether it's in life. Things might happen in your career, might happen in your life. You deal with it at the time, and look at it where you've went wrong. What can you do to make it better? You leave that there and you move on as a better person. And that's what I've done against my loss in my career. I've looked at things that weren't maybe working in my favor or weren't going right for me. I've changed a lot of things in my career and in my life. And I just left that in the past and moved forward now. And look where I am now. I'm fighting for a world title.
When you talk about changes, what were maybe the 2 or 3 changes or things that you focused on the most that you felt have gotten to where you are today?
I changed location of where I'm training. I was training over in Sheffield in England at the time. I'm now back closer to home in Ireland, and also training with Andy Lee, which has been a massive help in my career and in my boxing. So, it's those are 2 very big changes to make. And I think they've paid off big time.
Obviously, other than the Irish connection, Andy Lee being such a long technical fighter back in his days, how has his viewpoint of boxing meshed with your way of fighting?
Look, me and Andy came up through the same kind of a program on the Irish national team. We both ended up turning professional over in the States. We both ended up coming closer back to home. We've had a very similar journey in some ways, but Andy's boxing IQ is second to none, I believe, and the way that he reads a fight, the way that he gives instructions, very simple, very clear. He's definitely been a massive help to me, and those are definitely his strong points.
Jason, it's an exciting time, huge fight. Congratulations on getting it, and hopefully I'll be congratulating you afterwards on an excellent performance. Coming up 11th, November 19th. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Jeremy.
Good luck to Jason Quigley tonight as he goes for his first title. Odds are stacked against him, but he's speaking very confidently, so we'll see what happens with that tonight. Also on tonight's fight card is a flyweight title bout between Julio Cesar Martinez and McWilliams Arroyo. I talked to McWilliams Arroyo as well, had a stellar amateur background. This interim title that he possesses from the WBC was had because he was supposed to fight Martinez multiple times. Martinez kept getting injured or having an illness. and the schedules kept getting reshuffled. And now finally the two are going to meet. Let's hope that I didn't just jinx that and nothing happens before fight night. But McWilliams Arroyo talks about how much he's wanted this fight, and also what it's been like having to wait for it for so long, and what it means to be a full champion versus an interim champion. So here's my talk with McWilliams Arroyo.
McWilliams, thank you for taking the time. You've had a long wait for Martinez. Has waiting for this fight aided you in terms of preparation, or has it been frustrating, or both?
Well, actually, a little bit of both, yeah. But I don't let that get to me. So I go day by day, and I say whenever it happens, it happens. So hopefully this time will be it.
I'm assuming that that there's been so much time in between the top couple of times you're supposed to fight. I'm assuming that you've pretty much had a lot of opportunity to study him. What's your assessment of him as a fighter?
I think he's a great fighter. He's a good champion. He's a very aggressive fighter, and he's demonstrated that he's a good champ.
As far as how you kind of see this fight going, as far as your style mixed with his style, what's your anticipation for how the action and flow of this might work out?
Full action fight, because I'm an action packed fighter, and he is too. So the fans are gonna love this fight. Unless one of us hurt each other and one goes down and can't get up, they're gonna see a full pack fight.
I know that winning the interim WBC belt was a thrill, but does your mission to be a world champion feel incomplete until you win the full title?
Well, actually, yeah, because people are not giving me my props, and what people don't understand is that it was not my fault that I fought for the interim title. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I've been preparing myself since August 2020, August 15. We were gonna fight the first time, so it's not my fault, nor neither my problem. But it is what it is. So I've been training hard, and hopefully he has too. So may the best man win.
It seems that Martinez has been injury prone. I mean, there's been several, cancellations here. Do you think that his body's breaking down on him, even though he's kind of a young guy, or do you think that maybe it's the wear and tear of boxing and it's just one of those things?
I think things happen, but obviously he didn't feel like he was 100% ready, and that's why maybe the fights were postponed. And but it is what it is. I just go out there and do my job. I can't talk about him because I don't know what's really going on with him. So, but he said he's ready now. I'm ready. So, like I say, let the fans have a great fight.
I know I don't mean to laugh at it, but is part of you like, crossing your fingers and hoping that nothing happens this time around?
Yeah. I mean, I believe I'm not sure if the fight's gonna happen until the bell rings and we're both on the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Last time the fight got called out the day before the weigh-in, so that was kind of crazy.
For sure. I mean, it is crazy. Kind of looking at Martinez's resume, he has a good record, but do you feel like his resume has prepared him for a challenge of a fighter of your caliber?
Well, I believe everyone has the chance to prepare for any fighter. I believe I have fought with a better opposition, obviously, but that doesn't mean that that I have any advantage. Maybe he hasn't had the chance, and maybe I am the chance for him to show the people. But that's why I'm going out there to show people I'm there and I want to be a champ. I mean, I want to be the only champ.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
You've had to endure some bad luck throughout your career, whether it's, your shoe falling apart in a major fight or, just some of the things that have happened. But do you feel like everything kind of happens for a reason, and that now, all these years later that it's happening the way it's
most definitely. Yeah, I believe because of all the situations I've passed through, all these things that are happening with Martinez before, let me grow through it and not just get frustrated. I don't want to box anymore. I've learned to live day by day and get whatever happens for a reason. I believe in God, and it's when he says and when he ever decides.
You're older than Martinez, but you're also more experienced. Do you think that your experience is the factor that separates you the most from Martinez?
Well, it could be, but I can't say it is, if you look at me, I look young too. I've
You
taken
do.
care of myself. I never leave from the gym. So I'm always I'm like a gym rat. So that's not going to be an issue. And I feel great. And hopefully you guys see a great fight.
You've been in some tremendous battles and with some amazing boxers. I mean, you've walked through punchers like Chocolatito. When you stand up to a guy like Chocolatito's power, does that make you feel like you can walk through anybody's power?
No, I don't think that. But I mean, the biggest puncher I faced is Kazuto Ioka, not Chocolatito. Kazuto Ioka.
What describe that experience being punched by a fighter like that. What sets that type of punching power apart?
What guy you talking about? Kazuto? Because I didn't feel Chocolatito's power. To be honest, that's why I went in there. I brawled with him. I moved around, obviously, because I like to move around, but I didn't feel his power. I'm not saying he hits like a girl or nothing, but I've been in there with people that hit harder than Chocolatito. Maybe he didn't connect me as well, but like I said, I'm an honest man, and the hardest puncher I fight against is with Kazuto Ioka.
How about Ioka?
That was in 115. Maybe that's also a reason.
Describe what kind of maybe set Ioka's power apart from other people's. What were you feeling?
Maybe he's a precise hitter. He knows where to hit you, and maybe that's the difference.
I know that everybody has a plan.
I know he can probably say the same thing, because after the fight he was all busted up. But, but I'm an honest man. I don't 100%. Back down from no one. Yeah.
As far as your brother's connection to you, obviously twins, you guys have come up together. How much does he still play a part in your training and your preparation?
Oh, always. He plays with me psychologically. He always talks to me. He tells me what to do, and I tell him when he's gonna fight. And it's a very good bond that we always have. We always talk to each other almost every day. So, that's a great thing that we have.
Having the closeness, obviously, not just being brothers, but being twins, and then someone else that knows what it's like to be a fighter, to go through the rigors of it. How much of that has aided you in your life as a boxer that maybe other people can't quite understand?
Well, maybe that support that sometimes we need, somebody that will tell you the things in front of you. They won't lie or hide anything. They'll tell you how it is, and in real life and raw, even though you like it or not. So that does help you a lot in life and in boxing.
Final question for me, and I'll let you go. You're taking this fight. It's in not a typical location, right? I mean, this is an area that maybe isn't home to so many boxers. But when you go into an atmosphere like this, in this type of fight where there's maybe not that home field advantage for either fighter, what type of impact does fighting in maybe a new stadium or a new environment have? Do you block it out, or do you feel kind of the vibrations of the crowd?
Since amateur, I fought all around the whole world, and in pro, I've gone even to Thailand to fight. That doesn't even, I don't even think about that. When up in the ring, I block all that. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't favor me. Nothing. It's just normal.
That's pretty much all I got. McWilliams, thank you so much, and best of luck.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Make sure to check out both Arroyo's and Quigley's fight tonight. It's going to be a pretty good card on DAZN. That's where you can find it. And last but most certainly not least, I recently touched in with a good friend of mine, a good friend of the show, Adrian Clark. Big news. If you don't know, protect yourself at all times. PYaAT on the socials, search for it, is the initiative of Adrian Clark, who's a former boxing manager, and he's really made this his baby about protecting fighters outside the ring. When we talk about their business interests and managerial decisions and what pitfalls lurk for a fighter outside of the ring. He's been doing this for years. He's been talking about it. He's got the book, he's got a web series, and now he is teaming up with USA Boxing. They have a partnership. So Adrian Clark's Protect Yourself at All Times is now part of USA Boxing. He's being, this partnership is going to allow all USA Boxing members the ability to subscribe to his Protect Yourself at All Times initiative. He's got a website that's going to be a primary resource for fighters who are looking to transition into the professionals, to make sure that they take the right steps so they don't become victimized by the boxing business, which is absolutely ruthless. Adrian was kind enough to drop by, talk about it a little bit, and keep your ears open. Listen to what he has to say about the sport of boxing outside the ring and what this partnership is going to do for boxers in the USA Boxing amateur system. My talk with Adrian Clark. All right, Adrian Clark, my man, Protect Yourself at All Times. Now, as far as long as I've known you, I've always known you with the PYaAT, brand. Like, that's your baby. You created it. It started off as a book that, was meant to advise boxers. And now with the brand new news that you're teaming up with USA Boxing, I mean, first of all, congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
So this kind of guidebook that was meant to help boxers as they traverse the hidden pitfalls of a career. How do you see this now being something that USA Boxing can utilize for their fighters?
Oh man, from where I'm from, man, the saying is, if you're gonna reach one, you gotta reach them young. Like to get the message through to them, you gotta reach them young. And when I created Protect Yourself at All Times, it actually was a symposium. I was thinking in my head to do a symposium first. And when I was looking at the whiteboard, I'm like, man, this looks like a book, because I was just coming off of writing my first book. So I looked at it and I'm like, wait, this is more of a book than it is. So I turned it into a book. And before I did all of that, I actually met with Bernard Hopkins. So I really thought Bernard was going to be a huge part of Protect Yourself at All Times, because he loved the concept. And we talked in Dallas for a couple of days. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to be a part of what we have today. But with USA Boxing, I think Mike McAtee and Matt Johnson, who are executives at USA Boxing, I think they see the value in providing it to the athletes at a young age. So about time they get to the professional ranks, they already know about the dangers and the pitfalls of the business side of professional boxing. So it's a win for everyone that's involved. USA Boxing and Protect Yourself at All Times.
And one of the things that proves how intelligent you are, when I think about it, I think, okay, there's all these guys out there, guys and girls, that are, on the precipice of hitting the professionals, and this is what could help them. But you're even talking about it at a younger age, before they even necessarily get to that point, that, hey, know the sport and know what's really there. So that way, if we can educate people when they're younger, they'll be in a much better position when they're older.
Yes, like I came through the USA Boxing system as a USA Boxing athlete. Matter of fact, my past book is right here on my desk, man, from all the way back to 2008. And I didn't know during that time that, I wasn't going to be a professional boxer. I had no clue that I was going to be a boxing manager during that time. I was just in there kind of strutting my stuff, and I was in love with the sport. But man, it goes both ways, to where, yes, we're looking to educate guys that are looking to be the cream of the crop, the next Errol Spence or Terence Crawfords or whatever it may be. But there's a lot of other figures that make up the sport of boxing. You have journeymen, guys that probably won't ever become world champions, but still have a good living, like Gabe Rosado. Gabe Rosado, to me, is the great example of a journeyman that that's going to make a lot of money, that has made a lot of money in the sport of boxing, but Gabe knows the business based off of experience. And then you have opponents, guys that are going to be built to make the next world champions or whatever it may be. And you have guys that are going to have upside down records, to where people will look at it from the outside looking in like, oh man, this guy has like no chance, but they're still on the business side of boxing. So they still need to know the do's and the don'ts to the industry. And all of those guys, the champions, the contenders, the opponents, the journeymen, all of those guys, if they're from the United States, they come through the USA Boxing system. So going forward, now they'll have to see my pretty face at all of these events. telling them or giving them a book that's Protect Yourself at All Times, or giving them a pamphlet, or having them sign up for the website to become members of Protect Yourself at All Times, now those guys or girls will know better about the business moving forward. So I'm excited for everyone that's involved, but there's also another side to that, Jeremy. I could be educating like the next Adrian Clark, the guy that's gonna become a manager or a promoter or a matchmaker or a journalist in the sport. They'll know the business side as they grow as an amateur fighter, man. So this is just it's a win all around.
And I think that you kind of implied where you see this going, but for clarity, kind of your vision of, okay, so now Protect Yourself at All Times is now being backed by USA Boxing, is not necessarily being sponsored, but they're bringing it into the fold for their fighters as a resource for them. So how do you see fighters attaining this knowledge? Is it through the book? Is it through a website? How does that information get distributed?
So just as like when you become a member of USA Boxing, you get the pass book, and then you're able to fight at different smokers or different tournaments because you're a part of that membership. When January 1st of 2022 hits, you can now become a member of Protect Yourself at All Times, to where you'll have exclusive, whether it's video content, newsletters, tutorials. You'll be able to sign into the website and you'll get knowledge of the business that you won't be able to Google or to ask someone in the industry. Just as you'll be an exclusive member of USA Boxing, once you sign up to Protect Yourself at All Times website, you'll become an exclusive member, and you'll be able to have exclusive information, exclusive knowledge of the industry. And it's not just for the fighters. We'll also have a login portal for the parents also, because coming through the amateur ranks from the ages of 8 to 17, your parents or your guardians are heavily involved in what goes on. So we want them to be in the know of what the fighters are going to get into at the next level. So there'll also be a portal for the parents to sign up and to get an education on the boxing business also.
And I think that goes so well. I mean, you had the video series on Protect Yourself at All Times YouTube channel that really kind of has the building blocks of what Protect Yourself at All Times is, from all these different angles, whether again, it's from the fighter's perspective or whether it's from the parent's perspective. It seems to me that, yes, it's a program, it's a resource to help fighters, but along with kind of the exclusivity of the content, one of the things that people are getting is access to you and the ability to communicate with you if they have further questions about these kind of elements.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna I always wondered, man, aside from my brother who passed away in 2006, rest in peace to my brother, Brandon. I always wondered why boxing was our thing. Why did that work for us? And then when I got to college, why did I actually pick up boxing? And then 2 years after I graduated, a year after I graduated, I become a boxing manager. It was always like a why in the back of my mind. And Protect Yourself at All Times is my why. It was the reason why I went through those butt kickings from my brother, and then getting into the ring and getting some damage there, and then managing some of the best fighters that came over through the sport. The reason why I got all of that experience was to help out all fighters from all facets of life, whether their record is an undefeated one or an upside down one. My job is to help these guys out and protect them from the industry. There's never been an educational system in the sport of boxing to help protect the fighters outside of the ring. And I know I get a lot of questions about, you're trying to become a union. There's no way to have a labor union in the sport of boxing because the sport is not associated. So there's nothing to counter, essentially. My job is just to make sure that these guys or girls that are going to get into this sport, that they at least understand the business that they're getting into before they make that full crossover, man. So it's been a hell of a journey.
Obviously, the scope of USA Boxing is so big. I'm assuming that you're going to be on the road traveling to some of these events, kind of introducing yourselves to people.
Yeah, I'm actually, man, I'm not going to say a lot, but I'm definitely going to be at all the national tournaments going forward. I'm pretty sure there's other different events that USA Boxing has in between, but since the announcement, there's been a few other amateur tournaments or amateur I guess like showcase, or the guys that are like promoting amateur shows. They've reached out to see how we could work together. One that really comes to mind is Sugar Burt. Everyone knows about the Sugar Burt Classic out of Georgia. So big shout out to Sugar Burt for reaching out. But him and I've been knowing each other for a while now. So he's always brought up like, yo, we should work together, maybe help educate the fighters that come through my system. But as long as it's helping out the fighters, man, and putting the education in their laps or their parents' laps, I'm all for it. But USA Boxing sanctions it all. So to have a relationship, a strong partnership with the parent company to everyone else, I'll definitely be on the road a bit, making sure that guys know my face and know about protect yourself at all times. So again, it's a win for everyone that's involved. USA Boxing, myself, the parents, the fighters, the coaches. It may not be a win for people that are not doing it the right way. If you're looking to take advantage of the fighter, or if that's your MO, then yeah, this probably won't be good for you because a lot will be exposed. But I'm game for whatever.
Well, and that makes a lot of sense too. I mean, as long as that I've known you, which has been years now, there's always some story about a fighter that reaches out to you who is kind of at their wit's end. They don't know what to do. They're in a precarious position business-wise, and they're basically asking for advice on how to get through it. This kind of circumvents that. It gets before we even get to that point. Hey, arm yourself now so you don't have to be a fighter in that position.
Yes, man. If you know better, you do better. I think that's case in point to this entire conversation, to protect yourself at all times as a whole. If you know better, it's a great chance you'll do better. So if I can catch the athletes and their parents early on when they're going through the amateur circuit, if I can catch them at that time to help them know better, then even if they can't reach me when they're going into a meeting or whatever it may be, they'll know what questions to ask a manager or someone that's looking to represent them. They'll know better on how to move forward than the fighters of before. But yeah, I still get phone calls or emails to where guys just need help based off of a bad contract that they signed, or someone, for lack of a better word, duped them into signing something, or they painted this amazing picture of how things were going to be. But once they had their contract signed, people treated them like they were property, a slave, or I hate using that word at times, but it's the truth of the matter. That's how people treat these guys once they have their John Hancock on a piece of paper. It's like, oh, you can't do anything or say anything or make me feel a certain way. And if you do, I'm going to put you on the shelf and there's nothing you can do about it. No, you can't do that. Not with guys that are actually business owners. Boxers are business owners. So, but yeah, man, it's going to be good.
The state of USA Boxing, I mean, it really seems like over the last 2 or 3 years that they've made a lot of changes within USA Boxing, that, that there were some criticisms there about how they were doing certain things, but it really seems like, I think the Olympics is a great example. Like we always said, like, hey, we have these great fighters. Why aren't we winning, titles or medals or this, that, or the other? And it seems like they've listened to the critiques and they're really kind of doing the right things to try to put the fighter first. How intricate was that in you wanting to team up with them?
Oh, I did. I mean, Jeremy, you and I know each other, man. Like I did my research on them. I knew that they had, I think, 7 different executive directors in 13 years. And I've read different press releases on questionable things, before this regime got into office. So, I had my reservations, just like anyone else would if they did that type of research. But man, after talking to Matt Johnson, and I've been knowing Mike Campbell since I was fighting in the amateurs, they're going more in the right direction now of making sure that they got their ducks in a row, but then also making sure that the athletes are getting the best of the best if they're going to be with the USA Boxing system. And more fighters are starting to buy into like what the executive team is putting together. And I like that guys are staying amateur for a bit more. I cringe sometimes that guys turn pro at 17, 18 years old. That's relatively young. Don't get me wrong. Some of the guys that they pan out. So you look at it and it's like, oh, well, they still made it over, but there was just so much more that they could have learned through the amateur boxing system. And then now with Protect Yourself at All Times, there's a lot more that they can learn from a business side of things. So I give my biggest respects to the entire USA Boxing executive team, man, because they are making strides to make the organization greater than what it's ever been. But for the fighters, man, they're really going the extra mile because they didn't have to agree or even reach out. Like, they reached out to me first. It wasn't me beating down the door of USA Boxing to take on Protect Yourself at All Times. Once they saw that trailer, like, Matt Johnson reached out almost immediately, man. So these guys they're on a different level, man. And USA Boxing moving forward through the amateur ranks is going to change throughout the years, man. I'm just glad to be a part of what's going to go on.
Well, it certainly seems that USA Boxing is doing the right things. And everyone is showing that success. I mean, if we just look at the Olympics and how many people medaled and how successful they were as a whole, it seems like they're doing the right things, and teaming up with you and Protect Yourself at All Times just seems like another win column for the moral justices of boxing as a whole. So, Adrian, if someone wants to read more about Protect Yourself at All Times, where should they go?
So the website, man, we're really going to be pushing the PYaAT.org website, which you go to protectyourself@alltimes.org, PYaAT.org. And we're going to become a membership-based website to where you become a member, man, and the floodgates open to how much information and education that you can obtain. It is not just going to be base level. If you go to the YouTube page, that's going to be base level, man. Becoming a member, we're going to get down deep into like what it is to be a business owner as a professional boxer, understanding your money, paying taxes, planning for retirement, knowing what you're signing. I'm going to break those things down into detail, whether it's from a tutorial standpoint or just a video or a newsletter standpoint, to where the parents and the fighters will be definitely more educated. But PYaAT.org. And then, of course, Protect Yourself at All Times LLC on Facebook. And I believe it's PYaAT__ on Instagram. But yeah, man, this is everything that I've dreamed for. I'll be honest. I didn't think USA Boxing was an option or going to be available, but for them to reach out, man, it just shows what direction that they're going. And I'm just glad to be on board and Protect Yourself at All Times, man.
Hey, congratulations again. Another win for the good guys.
Appreciate you, Jay, man. Always good seeing you.
It is always great catching up with Adrian. Congratulations again to Adrian and the fusion between Protect Yourself at All Times and USA Boxing. I think it's going to help a lot of fighters. Make sure that you guys help spread the word, spread the gospel. Click like on this video if you're watching it on YouTube, or make sure that you guys give some positive feedback on the podcast. Keep your eyes glued to my YouTube channel, That Boxing Writer, because again, Stephen Fulton, big interview, awesome interview. I love talking to Stephen Fulton. And then hopefully later on, there will also be an interview with Gervonta Tank Davis, who I should be speaking to later today. Keep your eyes peeled. 2 big interviews. Hope you guys like the podcast. Hopefully I'll also be getting on the YouTube channel a bit more. I've been running in 50 different directions, and things don't seem like they're settling down. A lot of people want to talk, and a lot of great articles out there, and appreciate all the access to all the fighters and the people in and around the sport of boxing. Make sure you watch read my work at fansided.com/boxing. Listen to the podcast here on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, or wherever podcasts are distributed. And that's all I got for you guys this week. Have any questions, have any input, make sure that you guys contact me. My contact info is all linked throughout my socials. My email address is somewhere on YouTube or wherever. You guys will find me. But I do want to hear from you guys. Have a good one, and I'll see you guys next time.